Good morning. My name is Jonathan Williams, Certified Legal Video Specialist with K Video Productions. Our court reporter is Donna Delavina, representing Donna Delavina Reporting. We are at 3200 North Central Avenue, Phoenix, Arizona, to take the deposition of Sheriff Joseph Arpaio on behalf of the plaintiff in the United States District Court, District of Arizona. Case of Flake versus Arpaio et al. Case number CV-15-01132-PHX-NVW. The date is July 14th, 2016, and the time is 10:12 a.m. The attorneys will now introduce themselves. Plaintiffs first, please.
Stephen Montoya with Richard Trujillo on behalf of the plaintiffs. That would be you, Jeff.
Jeff Leonard and Evan Hiller on behalf of the defendants.
Thank you. Please swear in the witness.
Can you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this time and place to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Sheriff.
Morning.
How are you?
Alive. Doing good.
That's a good thing. I'm glad you're doing well. My name's Steve Montoya. I'm a lawyer here in Phoenix. I represent two residents of Maricopa County, Logan Flake and Austin Flake, who have brought several claims against the county and yourself and one of your deputies, specifically Marie Tromby. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Please state your full name for the record, Sheriff.
Joseph M. Arpaio, A-R-P-A-I-O.
And you're the Maricopa County Sheriff?
Yes.
And Sheriff, when were you elected to that position?
Took office January 1, 1993.
What was your position immediately before you were elected Sheriff of Maricopa County, sir?
Immediately, I was in private business.
Okay. How long were you in private business?
10 years.
Okay. You had a law enforcement career before that, I've read. Is that correct?
Yes.
And tell us about your law enforcement career before your career as our sheriff here in Maricopa County, sir.
Joined the Army when the Korean War broke out, 3 years, and then became a Washington, D.C. police officer, and then a Las Vegas, Nevada police officer, and then 27 years with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, Department of Justice.
In reference to your military service, Sheriff Arpaio, did you fight in the Korean War?
No, I was in France.
Okay. And you were honorably discharged, of course.
Yes.
And did you retire from the federal, the DEA, the
Yeah.
Drug Enforcement Agency?
Yes.
After how many years?
Going on 27.
And do they have ranks in the DEA?
Positions.
What
Like
was
a
your
rank.
position when you started with the DEA?
I was a federal agent in Chicago, then head of the DEA in Turkey in the Middle East, and then head of several DEA offices, regional director in Mexico, South America. So major portion of my career was in management positions.
Sheriff Arpaio, when you retired from the DEA, what was your job title?
I was the head of the DEA in Arizona.
Okay. And what year did you retire from the DEA?
1982.
And when did you start your career with the DEA?
It was November 1957.
Sheriff, have you ever had your deposition taken before?
Yes.
Do you remember how many times?
No.
Can you estimate how many times you've had your deposition taken?
As the sheriff?
In any capacity, Sheriff Arpaio?
Well, as the sheriff, and probably the only job I had where I was Deposed, I would maybe guess 20 times.
And you ran for sheriff, remind me, in what year?
1992.
Was that the first time you would run for elective office?
Years before when I retired, I recall I ran for city council.
In Phoenix?
Yes,
Was that a citywide election or was it a district election?
district.
Which district was that? If you remember, it was a
Well,
long
let's just
time
say
ago.
it was the northeast section.
Did you win?
No.
Okay. What inspired you to run for sheriff of Maricopa County, sir?
Well, I've had many requests since I retired, and decided to run for sheriff and utilize my all those years in law enforcement.
Have you ever heard of Arizona Post?
Yes.
What is your understanding of Arizona Post?
Well, I believe they certify law enforcement officers.
Can you be a state, city, or county law enforcement in Arizona without being law enforcement officer in Arizona without being first certified by Arizona Post?
I believe you have to be certified.
Are you certified by Arizona Post?
No.
Can you arrest people
Yes.
even though you're not a certified law enforcement officer?
I'm the elected chief law enforcement officer for this county.
I understand. Have you ever arrested anyone in your capacity as sheriff of Maricopa County?
I believe one time.
Tell me about it,
In summary,
please.
I was assaulted, and I arrested the person who assaulted me.
When was that? Approximately.
It could have been 15 years ago.
Were you hurt?
No, I was whacked in the throat, but no, I wasn't hurt.
When you say whacked, Sheriff, were you punched or?
Yeah, punch.
And did you pull your firearm, or how did you effectuate, Sheriff Arpaio, the arrest?
I had other people there to assist me.
Have you ever directed anyone be arrested in your capacity as the sheriff of our county, Maricopa County?
Not that I can recall.
I understand. I've noticed that you travel with bodyguards. Is that correct?
Travel where?
Travel around the Maricopa County oftentimes with bodyguards. I noticed this morning you brought 2 bodyguards with you, and they're more than welcome.
Yeah, deputy sheriffs, yes.
Are they deputy sheriffs who serve as your bodyguards?
Yes.
Okay. And you decided to bring them here this morning?
They are with me during the day at all times.
Have you received threats that make you believe that you need bodyguards with you during the day at all times?
Numerous.
I understand. Has anyone ever tried to hurt you other than what you've already described in your capacity as Maricopa County Sheriff?
Tried many times, but they haven't succeeded.
Well, that's good. Sheriff, if there's anything that I can do to make you feel more comfortable for your deposition, please interrupt me and let me know. If there's anything that you feel that you need to say to make your testimony more complete or accurate, Sheriff, please interrupt me at any time and let me know. If there's any concern that you have at any time, please interrupt me to let me know, okay?
Thank you.
And Sheriff, as you pointed out, I'm just a lawyer trying to do my job. You know, if this is not going to be an acrimonious day, I don't imagine. Okay?
That's okay.
Now, Sheriff, I'm not a law enforcement officer. I've never been one. I don't have any law enforcement training. Please explain to me what your general duties are as our sheriff.
My duties are to protect the public, run the jails, do the law enforcement, and full-fledged law enforcement agency.
Of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, correct?
Yes.
What jurisdiction, and your does your jurisdiction extend outside of Maricopa County?
Not necessarily.
Sheriff, I learned in the practice of law that, for example, if you're a Phoenix police officer and you see someone perpetrating a crime in Tucson, as a Phoenix police officer, as a law enforcement officer, you have the right to arrest that person.
You're correct.
Do you have that right as our elected sheriff here in Maricopa County? Can you arrest people outside of Maricopa County?
I would imagine I can.
Okay. You say you would imagine you can. Are you guessing, or do you know that?
That's the technical point, and I don't. The only reason I'm hesitating is because you brought up post certification. I get my authority from the Constitution, and I would imagine that would translate, even though not post certified for the state, that I could do that.
Are you familiar with Arizona post training?
Not the nuts and bolts.
Do you receive any law enforcement training as our sheriff?
Not forced to.
You're not forced to?
No. If I want to read a manual, I can read the manual, but it's not forced upon me to prepare for tests or any of that.
I understand. And Sheriff, I need to tell you this. I'm a little hard of hearing, and that causes me sometimes to speak more loudly than
Yes.
most people do. So if I speak a little loudly, I hope I'm not offending
No.
you. And if I sometimes lean forward, it's only because I'm trying to hear you better, okay?
Yes.
Now, so are you in charge of law enforcement for the county in Maricopa County?
I am the chief law enforcement officer, but you do understand there are other municipalities that have police departments. So in that respect, I can come into the area, but I am not in charge of other law enforcement agencies.
Who's your boss, Sheriff Arpaio? Who's your supervisor, if you have one?
I have 4 million bosses.
And that would be the voting populace of Maricopa County?
Yes.
Do you have any other bosses other than the people of Maricopa County who are registered to vote?
No.
Can the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors tell you how to do your job?
Not really.
Have they ever tried to tell you how to do your job?
Not that I can recall.
I understand. Now, you get a lot of publicity, don't you?
Yes.
Some of it's very good, right?
Depends on the reader.
I was reading on the internet parts of a book written about you, and I think it's called America's Toughest Sheriff. Are you familiar with that book?
That was 1996, I believe.
So you are familiar with it?
Yes.
Do you keep a copy on your desk? Because I think on one of the videos I've seen of you, I've seen it on your credenza.
Yes.
Do you think it's a good book?
Yes.
Do you think it's, what is your reaction to the label America's Toughest Sheriff?
I didn't give myself that title, but I don't believe there's anything wrong with it.
No, and I wasn't suggesting there was anything wrong with it. Are you proud of the title?
Doesn't make any difference what they call me.
Do you think it's a compliment or do you think it's an insult?
Well, there could be worse words, titles, so
Sure.
so I'm not against that title.
Do you think it's accurate?
It depends what tough is.
And that's what I'm asking you. You keep a copy of it on your credenza, so what does that mean to you? To be called America's toughest sheriff?
Has nothing to do with the title. It has to do with some of the information within the book. So the title doesn't, it's not there because of the title.
You know, I like to watch TV, and sometimes I like to watch the cable network Fox News. Do you ever watch it?
I watch it sometimes.
And I've seen you on there. You appear on Fox News sometimes, and other networks as well. Correct?
4,000 other interviews around the world, so it's not just Fox.
Oh, I know. I've
A
seen.
lot of other liberal type interviews.
No, that's true, Sheriff. But sometimes you're introduced as America's toughest sheriff on news broadcasts that you don't control. Is that correct?
Yes.
What's your reaction to being introduced on national television as America's toughest sheriff?
My only reaction is better than being called the meanest sheriff. So that title doesn't affect me, but it's to me it's a positive title compared with what other slogans or names could be on.
How do you interpret the adjective tough in the context of America's toughest sheriff?
I think it means that I do my job, work hard, and do what I can for the people I serve.
Would you prefer the title of America's fairest sheriff?
That would be a good title too.
Do you think you're fair?
Yes.
Do you work hard?
Yes.
And I'm obviously, I'm kind of one of your supervisors because I am a resident of Maricopa County, but what kind of hours do you put in as Sheriff Arpaio?
I would say 12 to 14 hours a day, maybe 7 days a week.
How many years have you been working that hard?
I would say probably 74 years.
And how old are you these days, Sheriff Arpaio?
Today, I am 84 years old.
Is today your birthday?
No, but you said these days.
Okay.
I'm bringing it up to date.
I understand.
Every day counts.
I get it, and I agree. So, Sheriff, I take it that your testimony is that you've been working 14-hour days since you were 10 years old?
I thought the question was hard, but I was referring more in my law enforcement career.
Okay. But your law enforcement career hasn't been 74 years, has it?
No.
Okay. So you work really hard.
Yes.
Do you study the law?
Do I study the law?
Yeah.
I have lawyers to advise me.
Yeah. Who are the lawyers that you refer to who advise you regarding the law?
Well, I have an in-house person that happens to be a lawyer, and then we have the county attorney, and then we have other lawyers for certain circumstances.
For the last 5 years, who is the lawyer that you have relied on most for legal advice?
I would say that my office, you do know I delegate, so I don't get involved in cases per se. So it's usually the county attorney that advises our employees.
Do you ever the job of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office is to enforce the law primarily in Maricopa County, right?
And run the jails.
I understand. In order to enforce the law effectively, you have to first understand the law, correct?
You have to, that's why we have lawyers that take advice from lawyers.
Well, answer this question if you would. I think it's a simple one, Sheriff. In order to enforce the law, you must first understand the law, correct?
Many times you need advice to enforce that law.
Do you seek advice from lawyers before you enforce a law to make sure that you got it right?
I don't. As I said, I'm the manager per se. I delegate, and it's my employees that deal with the attorneys.
Okay. Do you read laws? Do you read the laws that you and your subordinates are paid to enforce?
Do I read? I may read a decision once in a while, but I don't read legal books and so on.
And do you read statutes?
On occasion.
How often do you read statutes?
It may depend what the subject matter is.
What statutes do you enforce, Sheriff Arpaio?
Well, we enforce the legislature passes the laws, and that gives us the jurisdiction.
Who's in charge at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office for making sure that your sheriff deputies know the laws that they're obliged to enforce here in our county?
Well, we have many training sessions for our employees. We have a new training academy, which I'm proud of, and we utilize those facilities for training quite frequently, different types of subject matters to our employees.
How do you, laws are constantly changing, aren't they?
Yes.
And that's been the one constant probably throughout your career in law enforcement, right? Laws change.
Yes.
How do you, as sheriff, keep up to date regarding these constantly changing laws?
I'm going to say again that we have many training sessions for our employees, and there may be times that I will be apprised of certain changes.
How are you apprised of certain changes in the laws? How does that happen in the real world at your headquarters?
Well, many times my top staff would advise me. Many times the county attorney that are responsible for the prosecution.
Your top staff, you mentioned. Do you remember mentioning sometimes your top staff advise you regarding the changes of law?
Yes.
Who are your top, who constitutes your top command these days?
I have a chief deputy
And who is that?
that serves at my pleasure, Jerry Sheridan. Then we have several deputy chiefs, captains, lieutenants, sergeants, right down the line.
How long have you worked with, is it Deputy Chief Sheridan?
Chief deputy.
Chief Deputy Sheridan. How long have you worked with him?
I believe I appointed him about 10 years ago.
Do you think he does a good job?
Yes,
Is he a smart guy?
yes.
Is his knowledge of the law firm and secure?
I don't know. I haven't given him a test on the law, so I don't know, but I would presume he knows what's going on.
Isn't that something that you'd want to know rather than just presume?
Regarding the law,
Yeah.
I said we have many training sessions. have to do with legal aspects with our employees.
Do you attend any of those training sessions?
No.
When's the last time that you've actually participated in some type of educational activity regarding the law in your capacity as our sheriff?
Could have been about maybe a year ago.
What was it?
Had to do with certain amendments of the law.
What amendments were those, Sheriff Arpaio?
I think it was the 4th and 14th Amendment.
And what did you learn?
What did I
Object
learn?
to the form.
You can answer the question. What did you learn?
We learn on aspects of those amendments.
I understand that, but specifically, do you remember anything that you learned at that session?
It had to do with search and seizures.
That,
So-
okay.
But I didn't, I'm not going to go here and tell you everything I learned.
No, tell me what you remember learning.
Certain aspects of the Fourth Amendment and the search and seizures.
Does the Fourth Amendment govern searches and seizures, or is it another amendment?
Equal protection would be one. Search and seizure does involve the search and seizures and that type of thing.
When you say search and seizures, I'm confused. Is that part of the Arizona legislature statutory law? What part of law, where does that search and seizure law come from?
It would probably pertain to federal.
So search and seizure law is a federal law?
They do, I believe they have federal laws, yes.
Okay. What's this, so Congress passed a law governing searches and seizures?
Fourth Amendment. I think it involves
The Fourth Amendment to what?
it pertains to search and seizures also.
But you say the Fourth,
arrest and that type of thing.
but where's the Fourth Amendment? Where are you getting that from?
It's coming in under the federal law, Constitution of Congress. You can go on and on.
Okay, so is the Fourth Amendment something that Congress passed?
Constitution.
Okay. Are you sure?
To my knowledge, it is Constitution, amendments and so on.
So was this a seminar that you attended, Sheriff Arpaio?
Yes,
Where?
in our training headquarters.
And it was approximately a year ago?
I believe so.
And who was the instructor?
I don't recall.
Okay, other than it being about search and seizure, what else do you remember?
Many aspects.
Well, tell me.
Well, how to make arrests, probable cause. I can go on and on.
Go ahead. Go on and on
Well,
until you don't remember anymore.
Well, I'm going to say right now, probable cause and that types of situation. So these are the basic things that I have in my mind.
Okay. What did you learn about probable cause at that seminar that you attended at your offices approximately a year ago, Sheriff Arpaio?
When you make arrests and so on, the probable cause is an important element, or reasonable suspicion.
What is reasonable suspicion?
It depends on the circumstance.
What's the difference between reasonable suspicion and probable cause?
Probable cause would be where you need a little more information. Reasonable suspicion is what the word means. It all depends on the circumstance of the situation.
What do you need probable cause for?
To develop a case, probable cause, to conduct a law enforcement situation, to obtain search warrants. I can go on and on.
Okay, so
Make
you,
arrests and that type of thing.
okay, so you need probable cause to obtain a search warrant,
Yes,
and you need probable cause to arrest somebody?
yes.
Okay. And you use the term reasonable suspicion. Is reasonable suspicion another way of saying probable cause?
Not really.
What's the difference?
It could be enough of some information that does not really lead into the probable cause to continue the investigation, but you still have reasonable suspicion of a situation.
What do you need reasonable suspicion for in the context of law enforcement at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Arpaio?
This is well, this is a tough legal question you're asking me, but
You're the sheriff,
I'm not a lawyer.
but
That's
you're...
why I have lawyers.
I understand, but you're in charge of law enforcement in Maricopa County, right?
That's correct.
And your folks can actually take people's freedom away and haul them off to jail, right?
My folks are well trained, they receive legal advice, and they know what they're doing.
I understand that, Sheriff Arpaio. But can you answer my question? And the
what's
question
the
was, I'll
question?
remind you, what do you need reasonable suspicion for? In the
To-
context of being a sheriff or deputy sheriff in Maricopa County at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office.
To continue a investigation.
Can you arrest somebody based on a reasonable suspicion? If you know.
Once again, that's a legal situation, and it's difficult to give a blanket answer, so I can't give that blanket answer.
Well, if you can't give me a blanket answer, give me what you think is a truthful, accurate answer based upon your knowledge.
Well, I can give you one instance.
Okay.
If there's a smell, for example, of marijuana in a vehicle, that's kind of a reasonable situation, and that may lead into furthering that reasonable suspicion to maybe get a dog or get more information about that, which leads into the probable cause.
Can you arrest somebody based upon a reasonable suspicion, like you smell marijuana smoke? If you know.
There's been some recent decisions which I haven't reviewed, but I was trying to give you an idea of reasonable suspicion versus probable cause.
I understand. But the question was, Sheriff Arpaio, can one of your sheriff deputies or you in Maricopa County arrest somebody based upon a reasonable suspicion that they've committed a crime?
Once again, I'm going to say it may be a legal question that I'm not ready to answer.
I understand. And I respect that. Your senior staff used to include an individual named Brian Sands.
Yes,
Who's he?
he's retired.
Was he one of your sheriff deputies?
Yes.
For how long?
I'm just guessing, it could be 30 years, 28 years.
And Sheriff, if you don't, I'm not trying to put you on the spot on as far as dates go. Who would know how long an employee worked for you? That's a difficult question. He worked with you for a considerable period of time.
Yes,
And he retired,
yes,
and his retirement was voluntary.
yes.
What was his?
He wasn't fired, he retired.
Have you ever heard of retiring in lieu of being fired?
Yes,
That wasn't the situation with Deputy Sands, was it?
not that I know.
Were you his direct supervisor?
No,
Were you ever his direct supervisor?
no.
What was his highest rank that you remember at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office?
I believe we changed titles quite often.
I
I believe it could have
understand,
been
Sheriff.
executive chief.
What's that within your hierarchy?
That would be probably a rank above a deputy chief, but under the chief deputy.
Do you think you did a good job?
I had no problems during his career that I know of, whether he did a good job, because once again, his supervisor was not me. It was the chief deputy that evaluates his performance.
Well, Sheriff, let me ask you this. Do you think, in your professional opinion, that Executive Chief Sands did a good job when he worked under you?
Check the form.
Once again, I didn't evaluate him. I take the advice of my chief deputy and usually go by what my chief deputy says, or my subordinates that supervise people.
Who was your chief deputy when Sands served as your executive chief, Sheriff Arpaio?
I believe it was Jerry Sheridan.
Same guy you have now, right?
Yes.
Well, did he think that, do you know whether or not your chief deputy Sheridan thought that your executive chief Sands was doing a good job?
Well, I'm sure that he has his own opinion. I know there may have been some dissatisfaction on occasions, but I don't get into it. That's up to him, to the chief deputy, to supervise his subordinates.
Did Chief Deputy Sheridan ever tell you anything negative about Executive Chief Sands?
Steve, what does former Deputy Sands have to do with this case?
I'm not going to get into it with you. This is his deposition. That's an improper statement. But can you answer the question, Sheriff Arpaio?
What's the question?
Sure. Did your Chief Deputy Sheridan ever criticize your Executive Chief Sands to you? Like, here's what I mean. Hey, Sheriff, I just want to tell you, your Executive Chief Sands, I don't think he's doing a good job. I don't think he's honest. I think he's lazy. Or on the other hand, your Deputy Chief Sheridan could have told you, hey, your Executive Chief Sands is awesome. He's a super smart, super hardworking, super loyal to the county, very effective at his job, that kind of stuff. I'm asking whether or not your Chief Deputy Sheridan ever gave you any feedback regarding your Executive Chief Sands.
I have 4,000 employees. I don't remember every one that's been evaluated. So I'm going to say again, I don't remember if he had any confusion he may have had, and that would be up to him to talk about that.
Do you remember anyone on your staff ever coming to you and telling you that Executive Chief Sands was a liar?
I don't recall.
Do you ever recall anyone on your staff ever coming to you and telling you that Executive Chief Sands was incompetent?
Don't recall.
Are you aware that your former Executive Chief Sands has written, I'm pausing a book about you, and the reason why I'm pausing is because it's kind of like almost one of those internet books. I don't think you can really buy it at the bookstore. Don't look for it at Barnes & Noble. Are you aware of that? It's actually entitled, if I'm remembering correctly, De Facto Lawman.
De facto.
Yeah.
No, I heard about it. Yes.
What'd you hear about it?
I heard he had a, whatever you want to call it, out.
Who told you?
I don't remember who told me, but I know somebody told me. I sure don't search the internet to see who's writing books on it.
How many languages do you speak?
English, I
Yes.
hope very well. Spanish, because I lived in Mexico City, not that well. Turkish, lived there for 4 years, not that well. So I would have to say English would be my primary language that I know.
Any Italian?
Italian, once again, pieces, but not that well.
Have you ever studied any Italian librettos? We were talking about opera earlier.
No.
Do you know what de facto means?
That's a. I really don't have the. I have an idea, but I
What's your
never
idea?
looked it up. Never. I don't know what that word means in Webster. But I just. No, I can't give you an answer, definite answer, what that word means.
A de facto, well, what do you believe that it means? If you have a belief in that.
Check to form.
I don't have a belief.
Are you aware that Brian Sands' book about you, entitled De Facto Lawman, is very critical of you?
I was told.
Who told you that?
Don't recall.
What did they tell you?
Well, I believe they said there was things in there that were not true.
One of the things that your former executive chief, well, let me ask you this. Who's in charge of promoting over at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office?
Promoting?
Yeah.
You talk about promoting personnel?
Yeah. Yeah, like for example, was Mr. Sheridan always Chief Deputy Sheridan?
No.
Who made him Chief Deputy Sheridan?
I did.
Now, was Brian Sands always Executive Chief Sands?
No.
Who had the ultimate authority to make Mr. Sands your Executive Chief?
That would be the chief deputy.
Did you have to approve it as the sheriff?
It would be run by me, yes.
So you approved Mr. Sands' promotion to Executive Chief?
Taking the word of the chief deputy.
I got it. Now, are you a history buff?
No.
But you do remember, because you served our country, and thank you for that service, Sheriff, in the Korean conflict. I know you weren't in Korea, but you were still enlisted. You remember who our president was back then, of course. That would have been Harry Truman, right?
In 1950?
Truman was our president during the Korean conflict, right?
Yes.
And you've heard this, as I think almost everyone has,
Okay.
that you might have the same plaque on your desk.
Mm-hmm.
You made that gesture, so you're a couple of laps ahead of me. What did you mean when you made the gesture on the table?
Well, maybe I was just taking an exercise, but he was a good president.
He was, I
and
think.
I do too.
He was tough, too.
Good president. But I believe he says something like the buck stops here. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
you're ahead of me, and I thank you for that.
And I'm not ashamed to say that, what that president said.
No, I don't think you should be. He had a plaque on his desk in the Oval Office, I've read, that said the buck stops here. Remember that?
I don't remember. I just remember.
Or have
the
you heard of
verbiage.
that?
No, I'm just remembering the verbiage.
Okay. Does the buck stop with you at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Arpaio?
I would say it does.
And you're happy that it does because that's part of your job as our elected sheriff, right?
Yes, and if you're a good manager, I presume that you're not ashamed to say that. And I'm not ashamed to say it. But I have my management way of dealing too.
I understand. Now, have you ever heard of some people describe some managers as being very hands-on? I'm a hands-on manager. You ever heard that phrase?
Yes.
What do you understand that phrase to mean, Sheriff?
It all depends on who or what occupation or profession you're talking about.
Well, that's a really good point. So I'll get more specific. What does that mean to you in the context of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office? And let me even be more specific. Are you a hands-on manager at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, or are you something other than a hands-on manager at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office?
Check the form.
I'm the leader of the organization put in office by the people. But I've been a manager, federal, I can go on for 50 years. And my philosophy, very simple, you delegate. And I have that philosophy to delegate to my subordinates. And not get involved in nuts and bolts or nitpicking. And since you talked about the buck stops here, I'll give you my same type of situation. Management is getting things done through people. That's my own philosophy. And I'm sure many other people have the same philosophy in business, government, or whatever.
I understand, Sheriff. Let me ask you this, Sheriff. Is there any part of your job responsibilities that you don't delegate?
No, I would, I got 4,000 employees, the third largest sheriff's office, so yes, I do delegate. I don't go out and arrest people myself.
I understand. Let me ask the question again, though, even though I respect your answer and I think it was informative. Is there any function of your job that you don't delegate?
I can't think of one right now.
Brian Sands writes in his book, De Facto Lawman, that he repeatedly had to explain to you the concept of probable cause. What is your reaction to his claim?
Check the form.
I have no idea what he's talking about.
Well, let me ask you as a matter of fact, do you remember Brian Sands repeatedly having to explain to you the concept of probable cause?
No.
Do you deny that he repeatedly explained to you the concept of probable cause, or is it, I don't remember?
I don't ever remember him being a legal advisor or a teacher telling the sheriff what probable cause means.
I understand. According to Brian Sands, he writes in his book, quote, Arpaio once told me that the aggressive animal abuse image he developed was a political goldmine, as it brought a number of Democrats into his base. That certainly became apparent as I would hear people say they were against Arpaio, but because he defended animals, he was great, unquote. What's your reaction to that statement from your former executive chief, Brian Sands?
Check the form.
First of all, I'm not going to get into the reason he resigned. I will almost call him a very disgruntled employee without, that's my opinion and others. So the question you have is that I said that I enforce the animal cruelty for what reason?
I'll tell
the
you.
Democrats and so on? Is
And-
that
and-
what you're saying?
No, Sheriff, I'm not saying
No,
anything.
he's saying it.
Yeah,
no,
he's
I'm
saying it.
asking you.
And I'm
what
just-
he's I'm asking you to repeat
I
what
will.
he said about me.
I will, Sheriff, but realize I'm not saying that.
No,
I don't
but-
I don't know
okay,
one way or
could
the
you
other.
repeat the question, please?
Absolutely, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Quote, Arpaio once told me that the aggressive animal abuse image he developed was a political gold mine as it brought a number of Democrats into his base. That certainly became apparent as I would hear people say that they were against Arpaio, but because he defended animals, he was great. Unquote. Is that true?
I have a lot of support for that subject matter and many other things that my dedicated employees do, which translates to the elected sheriff. And I have a lot of top priorities. I'm trying to answer this without dragging this thing on forever. I could say no, yes, but I'm just going to say that this had nothing to do with politics. I started this animal cruelty many years ago when they were killing cats in Ahwatukee. Now, if the people support me on that issue, okay. If they don't support me, it doesn't matter, because I do a lot of things that people may not support. So this is something that I made a priority, animal cruelty. So whether it's, you say, to get elected or so on, no.
Brian Sands also suggests, and he's suggesting this, I'm not suggesting
I
it. I'm
understand.
just here to ask you
Yeah.
what your reaction to it is. Brian Sands also suggests that the reason why you were so aggressive on animal cruelty is because it helped you raise a lot of money. What's your reaction to that?
I have no idea raising money. I don't have people saying, here's the money because animal cruelty enforcement. But if it does happen, nothing wrong with it. I'm doing my job. I believe that those laws should be enforced, like other laws that may even be controversial. And that's what I do as the sheriff.
Brian Sands also says in his book that you are really not interested in the nuts and bolts of law enforcement. Is that true?
I'm going to say my management style. I just said it. I delegate to my subordinates. I have confidence in them to get the job done. So if you want to call that nuts and bolts or whatever.
So you agree with Brian Sands, at least in that respect, that you're not really interested in the nuts and bolts of law enforcement?
Object to form.
No, I am interested in nuts and bolts. I'm interested in anything that happens in this organization, but I have the management skill, just like I delegated to him on his nuts and bolts, how he should be conducting himself, and that's my style.
I understand. Now, Brian Sands also writes in his book that although you're not interested in the nuts and bolts of law enforcement, according to him, you're very much interested in interacting with the media. What's your reaction to that?
Object to form.
Most of the time, the media comes after me. And my philosophy is to respond. I don't hide from the media. So if you are enforcing the law, some of it may be controversial. The media gets excited, and I respond. So being the elected sheriff, it's my duty to let you or the 4 million people know what's going on in the sheriff's office.
I understand that, but Sheriff, my question was a little bit more specific than that. Brian Sands claims you're not interested in the nuts and bolts of law enforcement on one hand, but you're totally interested in interacting with the media on the other hand. Is that true?
Object to form.
I'm interested in the nuts and bolts. I said,
So it's not true?
no, it's not true. And I
Okay.
have to,
Don't interrupt.
excuse me.
Don't interrupt him.
Please
I have
don't
to
point.
respond to clear up one thing, because
Please.
we're twisting the nuts and bolts around.
Set it straight.
I have said from day, when you asked me about this, about my management style, I said, I delegate, I give the authority and confidence to my employees. Doesn't mean I'm not interested in the nuts and bolts. They carry out what I'm interested in the nuts and bolts to get the job done.
I understand. So that takes care
I
of
hope I
what
clarified that.
I think you
The
did.
way I feel.
So when Brian Sands says that you're not interested in the nuts and bolts of law enforcement, that's not true.
Of course it's not true.
I understand. Now, on the other hand, it's according to you, it's also not true when Brian Sands says that you're only interested in interacting with the media. That's not true either, right?
That is not true.
I understand. So you believe that Brian Sands is untruthful.
Object to form.
In those aspects, yes.
Now, Sheriff, a little while ago,
When you say untruthful, I don't use that word.
what word do you
Have a
use?
misunderstanding.
Okay. And a misunderstanding can be accidental or intentional, right?
I have no idea.
And you don't know which it is, right?
That's right.
So you're not calling Brian Sands a liar, are you?
No.
And sometimes people's memories differ, right?
I would imagine.
And it could be that Brian Sands is accurate when he claims that he repeatedly had to explain the concept of probable cause to you, right? And you just don't remember.
I don't remember him ever giving me instructions on probable cause.
That's true, but that doesn't mean that he's lying. And his claim that he had to repeatedly instruct you regarding the content of probable cause, that doesn't mean that he's lying, right? He could be telling the truth, you just don't remember.
Well, he's writing the book, so I don't know if this book is a legal document or what it is on his allegations in his book. So I once again, I don't remember whether it's true or not true. It's a possibility that he could have on occasion.
Now, Sheriff, have other people accused you of being very much interested in attracting publicity to yourself? Has anyone else ever accused you of that, Sheriff Arpaio?
Accuse me of publicity? Is that the question?
No. And Sheriff, I thank you for asking me to
because
clarify.
Would you clarify it?
I will. But Sheriff, I want to tell you this. Sheriff, you have the right to interrupt me and ask me to clarify at any time. All right? Which is what you just did.
And I did it a couple minutes ago.
I know, and
thank you for that.
And I respect that. But you don't have to thank me for it, sir, because that's your right. And I respect it. But let me ask you this. Has anyone else ever accused you of attempting to attract a lot of publicity towards yourself?
There are people that I don't remember who they are, but there has been people talk. He gets a lot of publicity. Yeah, even the media will say that. I mean, they will say that he's a publicity hound, but yet they call me. I don't call them.
You use the term publicity hound. What do you mean by that?
I don't know. I'm
Well,
just
you
saying what
use-
some people have said.
You used the term, did you use a term that you don't understand?
I didn't use a term. I'm saying some people, in response to you, you asked me if anybody has said I'm geared towards the press. I'm saying, once again, there has been talk in my career of 24 years, but when the media comes, I respond to them normally. So
I
that's
understand.
normally the way it works with the sheriff.
I understand. Do you understand the term publicity hound to mean someone who inordinately seeks publicity?
Well, I don't know what the word hound means. I guess you have animals, you have dogs called hounds too. So I don't know. That's not my terminology. But some people, I don't remember who have said that. But it doesn't affect me anyway, what they say.
Brian Sands accuses you of being tough on alleged animal cruelty to garner publicity and to collect contributions. You deny that, correct?
Yes.
Has anyone else ever accused you of engaging in certain activities in your office in order to gather money for your political campaigns?
Not that I know of.
Would that be false? If someone
Sure.
were to accuse you of manipulating your law enforcement in order to collect campaign contributions, would that be false?
Yes.
Would that be a lie?
Object to form.
I don't use the word lie. I will say, as far as I'm concerned, what he is saying is not true.
Who else?
That may be his idea.
Who else has accused you of using your office and your law enforcement activities within your office to gather publicity and collect campaign contributions? Who else has accused you
I don't really,
besides Sands?
I don't really remember anyone else actually coming out and saying what he said.
Are you familiar with an individual whose whose last name is Snow? Judge
Just
Snow.
a judge. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Why, you should have said Judge Snow.
Well, he's also an individual. Are you familiar with Judge Murray Snow
Yes,
over at the federal court?
yes.
What's your opinion of him?
Object to form.
I respect all judges.
So you respect Judge Snow,
Respect all judges.
including Judge Snow.
Yes.
Now, he's recently found you to be in contempt of court, hasn't he?
Are we getting into a current federal case? Is that what you're asking me?
Well, I'm asking whether or not I'm asking whether or not United States District Judge Murray Snow has recently found you to be in contempt.
Yes.
Is he right?
Not going to comment on that.
Why not?
Still in progress.
How is it still in progress?
I'm not going to comment. This is something my lawyers are handling.
Steve, if you want to get into that case, then, you know, we can, assuming you're permitted to do it, which has nothing to do with this litigation, then we can recess and we can contact the sheriff's lawyers in that case and give them an opportunity.
We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that at all. And Sheriff Arpaio, you are here because I've noticed your deposition. You are not here voluntarily, sir. And you cannot refuse to answer a question unless the court allows you not to answer the question or your attorney instructs you not to answer because the question violates the attorney-client privilege. Now, we are claiming in this lawsuit, Sheriff Arpaio, that you do a lot of things for the sake of publicity. A federal judge has recently found in writing, in a contempt order, that you do a lot of things for publicity. So I think it is related, and that's why I'm asking you the question. So what is your response to Judge Snow's factual finding that's very recent that you engage in certain law enforcement activities in order to garner publicity and collect campaign money?
I'm not going to comment on that. That was his decision. It hasn't been completed yet. And I'm not going to question the ACLU allegations or his decision. But I disagree that I do not run this organization to attain campaign money. I think that was an allegation by the ACLU.
Okay, I understand. How many times have you been held in contempt of court, Sheriff?
In my 55 years?
Yes.
One.
And it was by Murray Snow?
Yes.
That was a very significant event for you, wasn't it?
What do you mean by significant?
Well, significant meaning important. It was a very important event in your professional career when a federal district judge here in Maricopa County, after a lengthy evidentiary hearing, found you in contempt. Was that important or significant to you?
I think it was important, but just let me just basically say that my chief deputy and I admitted to that situation as a leader to take the heat, if you want to use that word, as managers for this organization.
I understand.
I'm not going
that.
to speak any further about that. I'm just responding to, you asked me how I felt, and I just gave you the answer.
I understand, Sheriff Arpaio. Sheriff Arpaio, I'm not going to make this an exhibit, but I am going to identify it for the record. This is a document. It's entitled Findings of Fact and Order Setting the Hearing for May 31st, 2016. It's in the case of Manuel de Jesus Ortega Melendrez in United States of America versus Joseph M. Arpaio in his official capacity of Sheriff of Maricopa County. Are you familiar with that case?
What date was that?
I didn't give you the date, Sheriff Arpaio, but I'll give it to you now, sir. Sheriff, the date is May 13th of this year. That's the date it was entered. Are you familiar with that document?
I know it came through, yes.
Can I have it back? You can look at it too. Now,
May 31.
Sheriff, have you read this document?
I'm pretty sure I went through it with my lawyers, possibly.
Okay, now, Sheriff, have you read this document? It's a simple question.
Let me see the document again.
Absolutely, Sheriff.
It's a rather large document.
It is. It's very voluminous, to be sure.
I'm sure I went through it.
Did you read the whole thing?
I'm probably sure I did. So
Are you probably, did you read this? The answer would be yes, no, or probably, or I don't know.
Well, I'm saying
Object to form.
I rather convinced I read it. Whether I read every page, I don't remember.
How's your memory?
Memory's good.
Good. Do you remember the court finding, quote, Sheriff Arpaio knowingly ignored the court's order because he believed that his popularity resulted, at least in part, from his enforcement of immigration laws, period, unquote. That's from page 14 of Judge Snow's order of May 13th of this year, docket number 1677. Do you remember reading that?
Remember now, I can't remember what was in that document now. My memory is good, but I sure don't remember everything in that, how many pages.
Do you remember how many pages this thing is?
No,
It's 162 pages. It's pretty long, right?
that's why I can't remember.
But do you remember the part I just read? Because that's a pretty critical part, at least in reference to yourself.
I remember it now because you just refreshed my memory.
Is it true?
Once again, this case is not finished. I don't believe it's true. What he's saying, can you repeat that again about the popularity?
Yes, sir, I can.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to. Quote, Sheriff Arpaio knowingly ignored the court's order because he believed that his popularity resulted, at least in part, from his enforcement of immigration laws. He also believed that it resulted in generous donations to his campaign. Is that true?
As far as I'm concerned, I'm not trying to disagree with the judge because that may come at a later date, but right now I don't agree with the ACLU's decision on that.
Okay, is this the judge's decision or the ACLU's decision?
The ACLU presented the case to the judge.
But the judge decided the case, right?
He decided. You're saying that part? Are you saying that was his decision? The judge made that comment?
Yes, Sheriff Arpaio.
Okay.
This is the order.
Mm-hmm.
You're familiar with it, right?
I remember the order, yes.
Did you read it more than once?
I'm sure I read it once.
You're sure
but
you
I
read
can't
it once?
remember everything that I read. You're asking me these questions now.
Sheriff Arpaio, is it your sworn testimony that you read this order all the way through?
Yes, I said I
Question's
did.
already been asked and answered several times.
Okay. Now, Sheriff, the part that I was reading from isn't written by the ACLU, sir. It's written by the court. Do you understand that?
I'm going to answer it again. This is a judge's decision. It doesn't mean that I fully agree with it.
I understand. And Sheriff, I want to get something straight with you. I don't think that your testimony was disrespectful to the court in any way. So if I don't want you to think that I'm trying to get you to disrespect the judge, because I think that you have been respectful towards him.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, when you got this order, did you take it home with you to study?
I don't recall whether I took it home or did it in the office.
Have you read it more than once?
Object to the form. You've asked him and it's been
I'm sure I
answered.
read it once. I don't remember if I read it again or went through some parts of it.
Because it's pretty hard on you, isn't it?
What is hard on me?
Judge Snow's findings of fact and order holding you in contempt of May 13, 2016. The order finding you in contempt, which, as you testified to, you admitted to before the hearing, it's pretty It's pretty tough on you, isn't it?
You're talking about civil contempt, is that correct?
Yes, yes, Sheriff. Certainly not criminal.
Well,
Yet.
What did you say?
It's not criminal yet.
Yet?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what I mean by that since you asked. Is you know
I
better
asked
than
you what you're talking about here.
and that's your right, Sheriff.
You said contempt. Are you talking about civil contempt?
I'm talking about civil contempt.
Okay,
but,
that's what I asked you. This is a civil contempt that we're dealing with.
But you also understand that the judge is contemplating recommending criminal contempt charges against you, correct?
I don't know what his decision is. I don't read the judge's mind.
I understand, and I respect that answer, Sheriff Arpaio. But Judge Snow's civil contempt findings against you are pretty harsh, aren't they?
I believe that was a finding against me and my office.
It was against you individually, though, too, wasn't it?
And many others.
That's correct. Isn't it true that Judge Snow also found that, quote, Sheriff Arpaio knowingly attempted to conceal 50 hard drives of Montgomery information, unquote? Isn't that true?
I'm not a lawyer, but I would have to say that the word Arpaio is through, instead of saying the sheriff's office, the name is used. Where I may not have any knowledge, but still the name is used. Arpaio this, Arpaio that, Arpaio that. So I will say this, many of these situations I've had no knowledge of. So this is the judge's order. I respect his order, and that's it.
I understand. Isn't it true that the judge specifically found on page 65, paragraph 367 of his order that, quote, on October 18, 2013, Sheriff Arpaio and Deputy Sheridan began misstating the contents of this court's order to their own officers in training sessions and maligning the order as unconstitutional, ludicrous, and crap, unquote. He found that, didn't he?
That's his decision.
Is it true?
I'm not going to question his decision.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you ever describe Judge Snow's order as unconstitutional, ludicrous, and/or crap?
I don't recall saying that.
Do you deny having said that?
I don't recall saying that.
So you don't deny it?
I don't recall ever saying it.
Okay, Steve, first of all, don't raise your voice. I know you've explained your hearing issue, but don't raise your voice. It's about 11:30 now. This is probably a good time to take a break.
Okay. Can I get you folks anything to make you more comfortable?
This ends Media 1 of the deposition of Sheriff Joseph Arpaio, off the record at 11:30 a.m.